Time flies like an arrow. Fruit flies like a banana. That pearl of wisdom, often erroneously attributed to Groucho Marx, is actually rooted in tempus fugit, a phrase first appearing 2,000 years ago in a Latin poem and translating into time flies. I guess I've had a lifelong obsession with time since I believe it's our most valuable natural resource and one that I suppose will eventually be depleted. Even this talk is a race against time. Now, I'm not really a conspiracy theorist, but sometimes I feel like Mother Nature and Father Time were having a fling behind my back and without my consent. And as a consequence, I got dropped off here as just a tiny little cog in their giant wheel of existence. Determined not to let either of them have the last laugh, I knew I had to get the ball rolling quickly rather than just watching sand shifting through the hourglass. As a youngster, that was probably my life's very first epiphany. My life's journey is a trail of stumbling across epiphanies during my quixotic efforts to battle the march of time. It seemed like not very long ago when my kindergarten artwork was chosen to be displayed in the lobby of Park Avenue's famed Lever House in New York. Drawing was just one of my many passions, inspired by my dad, a very promising artist and talented painter and sculptor, but who soon was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. I saw firsthand how life could be abbreviated and resolved to always live mine to the very fullest. I grew up in the age of the Jetsons. I watched as man first stepped foot upon the moon, and I noticed how artificial organs appeared to extend people's longevity. So, technology was moving at a breathtaking pace. And despite my concerns that none of us would live forever, I was greatly reassured by the notion that by the point I reached the ancient age of 65, there would be a pill to extend my lifetime to 200 years or more. That I thought I could surely handle. As a somewhat nerdy kid, I watched as my dad's physical condition worsened, and I became fascinated with the human body and the study of medicine. In fact, by the time I was 11, somewhat reminiscent of that old television series Doogie Howser, I was actually conducting research into the development of internal power sources that could drive an artificial heart. I suppose a subconscious metaphor suggesting immortality. I spent some captivating time in the laboratories of the Cleveland Clinic with the likes of Dr. Willem Kalf, an artificial heart visionary and inventor of the artificial kidney. This medical magazine's feature story discussed my budding career at the age of 12. I was actually offered a job by Dr. Kalf to serve as his technical assistant in just a few years, but I thought perhaps it would be better if I first tackled my university studies as a pre-med student, which brought me here to this very school. Upon arrival on campus, this city boy was just blown away by the beauty of upstate New York and the dazzle of all four seasons. I suppose it was a good thing that during this time as a sophomore, I had my one and only midlife crisis at the ripe old age of 19. It seemed the study of organic chemistry was simply no match for the magic I felt driving the back roads of Broome County through charming villages and to hidden waterfalls. I realized the most worthwhile road for me to explore was the one that sped straight to my passions. That was my second life-altering epiphany. So I chucked pre-med and became a geography major, attesting to my fascination with the world all around me. I remember on my graduation day, I met my parents just before the ceremony, and I breathlessly told them, "This is the most exciting day of my life." My dad understandably thought I was referring to the cap and gown commencement ceremony about to take place, and my mom, perhaps a tad over-optimistically, I think she kind of thought I was about to receive some kind of cum laude honor. When I told them instead that only 3 hours earlier I had voluntarily jumped out of an airplane 4,000 feet above nearby Kirkwood, I could have sworn I detected a slight hint of disappointment on their faces. After that quantum leap of faith and nearly simultaneous graduation, I came to my most important epiphany. I realized I was much more interested in crafting a life than making a living. I watched as my college friends were climbing their corporate ladder, but as they were moving up, I was moving across. Usually, I was at the front of a motor coach traveling across North America as a tour guide, microphone in my hand, Nickermac camera by my side, and behind me, 40 or so very enthusiastic travelers excited to explore the country. I was photographing our roadside landscapes for future book projects, and at the very same time, I was meticulously recording the precise pathways of my travels with a ballpoint pen on an AAA map. Although I felt very blessed to earn my living while canoeing through the Canadian Rockies or grabbing a streetcar in San Francisco, I still knew that time was ticking away during each additional revolution around the sun. I was always mesmerized by the solar system, and I read about an upcoming eclipse in a science journal. There were no Google searches or blogs at the time, but the magazine's chart showed the exact path of the eclipse as it crossed the northwest. I had always wanted to photograph a total solar eclipse in an image that would include a landscape, something I had never seen before. But unfortunately, that event was scheduled in the dead of winter and during my starving artist days when I didn't even own a vehicle. I was able to convince an old college roommate of mine to come with me, sleeping on a Greyhound bus with a $99 all-you-can-travel-in-one-week ticket out to Glendive, Montana, where we were hoping to rent a car. But when we got dropped off in the middle of nowhere in below 0-degree weather, the only place where we could escape the teeth-chattering winds was inside a nearby telephone booth, where we both huddled for a very long hour before the rental car opened up. But we got our car, and we sped away toward our target zone near the very appropriately named Ray, North Dakota. I had come here hoping to build a snowman in front of a rural scene and found an old abandoned farmhouse. I had traveled with carrots for a nose, corncob for the mouth, and charcoal for the buttons, but I was dreadfully unprepared for the severe weather. We started attempting to build this snowman with North Dakota's decidedly snowball-unfriendly talcum powder-like snow, and it took a great deal of labor and sweat to finally construct a rounded front. Unfortunately, that sweat was freezing on my hair and turning my head into a chandelier of dangling icicles that were banging on my forehead and threatening to poke my eyes out. So I reached in my pack, and I got an extra pair of underwear, put it on my head, and with this improvised headband, we continued working on what must surely have been someone else's private property. Well, before long, a state trooper vehicle pulls over to the side of the road, and within moments, we're both sitting in the back of their patrol car as they're furiously running criminal background checks on us. Not making much headway, I heard one of the troopers mutter, "It's the damnedest thing I've ever seen," before he threw us out of the vehicle and they roared away down US Highway 2. Nearing completion of the snowman, I realized we'd still have to drive an additional 30 miles just to find the nearest tree where we could get branches for the snowman's arms. Well, that photograph is what landed me my very first meeting with National Geographic. I started receiving assignments from assorted magazines and newspapers, photographing on land, over and under the sea, and in the air. And during this pre-drone era, I became particularly adept at hanging from wires and ropes and cables to search out unique perspectives and also to kind of capture the visual excitement that I found as I traveled the world. trying to get as many different aspects of my vision from unexpected angles. And within a short period of time, I had about dozens of photographs appearing on Photo's travel guides. But my interest in unique perspectives extended well beyond just the visual to surprising travel experiences, and particularly eccentric lodgings in which to spend a night. I enjoyed warming up in a cozy lighthouse just as much as freezing my rear in a nice hotel. I put my feet up in giant shoes. I napped in 3-story tall dogs, 6-story high elephants, and even laid in a nest. Also up above, I slept in swaying tree houses and in rattling fire lookout towers, and down below, spent some time in caves beneath stalactite-covered ceilings, where I would then go further below to scuba dive to my bedroom underwater, where I'd awaken to a bedside staring competition with barracuda and be able to watch 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea on the VCR. Although I had stayed at places where I could actually feed giraffes from the comfort of my couch, I suppose my very favorite place to stay was way up in a harbor crane, where I could swivel my bedroom around 360 degrees in order to inspect the horizon in all directions. Inspecting my own horizons, I continued avoiding the bumper-to-bumper monotony of a routine life. Whenever I traveled, I tried to pack a suitcase that was tightly stuffed with dreams, imagination, and carefully calibrated doses of insanity. That helped me to continue pushing the boundaries of my comfort zone, so I soon found myself canyoneering on a 50-mile journey through boot-sucking quicksand and slithering through claustrophobic slot canyons in the Southwest. Ice sailing on the Hudson River, and land yachting over the Pancake Flat Mojave Desert. I did some tornado chasing across the Great Plains, playing a very dangerous dodgeball game with Mother Nature. And I hiked and trekked across the volcanic methane gas death zones that were wafting over the molten lava fields of Kilauea. I cooled off while ice climbing in the Colorado Rockies or dog sledding the Gunflint Trail in Minnesota, and I got to the Everglades and canoed along labyrinthine mazes of mangrove swamps above waters that were clogged with hungry alligators. And I picked up the pace from this considerably when I went rocking and rolling along violent Class 5 rapids on a 200-mile dory rowboat journey through the heart of the Grand Canyon. On the island of Borneo, I spotted the proboscis monkeys sporting a face only a mother could love. And I encountered mountain gorillas in the midst of Uganda's rainforest. I witnessed the mystical pink dolphin emerge from the Amazon, and I had to submerge in the Indian Ocean to go shark cage diving and to swim with whale sharks, the world's largest fish. I spent a very lonely week camping on an isolated Aleutian island with 5,000 walruses, their insistent grunting and groaning and snorting and snoring, keeping me awake in my tent at night, each pinniped 2 tons of bouncing pink biomass. Down near the bottom of the world in Antarctica, I met the southernmost animals on Earth, the emperor penguins protecting their chicks from blizzards. And at nearby South Georgia Island, I was met by this greeting committee of 6 king penguins. But actually, I did see more king penguins than that. Actually, I saw even more than that. And actually, even more than that. On the opposite side of the globe, I found the planet's most noted piece of real estate when I reached the North Pole and was able to witness celebrants dancing around all 24 time zones of the world as they skipped over the international date line into tomorrow and back into today. They all converged at the North Pole. At that same place, I climbed an icebreaker, documenting that at that very moment, I was higher atop the surface of the planet than any of its 5.2 billion human inhabitants. But to gain real heights, I felt my lungs screaming for oxygen near 20,000 feet as I summited Mount Kilimanjaro, and on that same continent, I went sailing a wicker basket pinnace down the Niger River to fabled Timbuktu, where I met the mysterious semi-nomadic Tuareg people, sandblasted as they made their migrations across the Sahara. In fact, I realized that it was the Earth's astonishing array of humanity that most commanded my attention. I started seeking out vanishing indigenous tribes, particularly the fiercely cannibalistic Asmat warriors who were said to have eaten Michael Rockefeller on New Guinea, whose mountainous interior also hid the Melpa Wigmen, only discovered a few decades ago. I spent time with the riverbank-dwelling, palm fiber-wearing Yagua in Peru, and with the flute-playing, shaman-consulting Wai in Guyana. And I particularly enjoyed my time with the land divers of Vanuatu, who were said to have invented bungee jumping by tying vines around their ankle and leaping from rickety bamboo towers in order to ensure a successful yam harvest. Even here at home, I was just amazed by rugged individualists that were stubbornly defying modern society. Grizzled eel trappers, fearless beekeepers, and very careful rattlesnake wranglers. After having traveled all 7 continents in 240 countries, it became apparent that the unstoppable march of time was even more worrisome than I initially believed. Ancient cultures were vanishing, fragile landscapes were deteriorating, and endangered species are threatened with extinction. That's what spurred me to document in 8 books our global wonders and cultural heritage that is really being rapidly threatened by that kind of fast modern progress. On my most recent book, Children Around the World, I surveyed the incredible array of the newest minted members of our human species and was reminded yet again of my own most treasured legacy, an all too quickly growing son who is also racing against time and forging his own distinct trail of discovery on this amazing planet. In fact, he served as inspiration for Beautiful Planet HD, which was the iPad's very first #1 best-selling travel app and was meant to inspire a new generation and instill an appreciation for the kaleidoscopic tapestry of cultures that we have here on Earth, and heighten our awareness of even our closest human neighbors. In fact, not very far from our shores, on the island of Cuba, I met the people who are cornered between the dreams of a communist dictator and the realities of a crumbling infrastructure. That trip sparked a final epiphany for me. At Havana's Partaga cigar factory, I encountered a realization of one of life's most essential truths. It ain't the length, it's the girth. In other words, the true measure of our longevity is not really calibrated in the number of days we spend here, but rather in the thickness of our experiences. Instead of retreating to the very shallow screens on our digital devices, where we often bury ourselves beneath the thin pleasures of followers and electronic positive reinforcement, I've learned to look at every brand new waking day as a giant empty canvas upon which to paint my gratitude, scribble my joy, and compose my life. For many of you, that might not even require a passport, but simply the determined gathering of meaningful happiness, whether that be the enthusiastic sharing of knowledge and inspiration with others, the heartwarming bliss of nurturing a family, or even the profound gratification of assisting the needy. Our time here on earth is indeed an opportunity to make a significant difference if you ensure that life is never treated like it's just a dress rehearsal. You take care to prevent your soul from growing gray before your hair does. And finally, at least make a valiant attempt at having the last laugh with Mother Nature and Father Time. Thank you.